And this week we're going to be talking about foreign policy and international agreements. Again, I'll tell you that there is a help session on Tuesday if you want to follow the link and show up then. Let's talk about our contemporary debate. We're talking about Donald Trump's, quote, American first foreign policy. You need to listen to this article and study the debate over what it is that he is proposing. You'll know from the campaign he talked a lot about withdrawing the United States from international agreements. He thought we should be focusing on taking care of what country? Answer your 4 questions, then we'll move on to the case study. All right, so this is day 2. We're going to talk about something called the League of Nations. This should sound familiar to you from your world history classes. The League of Nations was created after the end of World War I. Let's talk about specifically what it would do. We're going to focus on a couple articles. Article 1. Any state may become a member of the League if it guarantees it will observe its international obligations and shall accept the rules created by the League in regard to its military, naval, and air forces and armaments. Article 4. The Council may deal with any matter affecting the peace of the world. Each member of the League shall have 1 vote. Let's talk about these first 2. So, any country, any state, can join the League. And what is the League focused on? Any matter affecting the peace of the world. Article 10. The members of the League will respect and protect against aggression the territory and political independence of all members of the League. Article 11. Any war or threat of war is a matter of concern to the whole League, and the League shall take any action to protect the peace of nations. So far, any country can join, and the main purpose of the League of Nations is to prevent what from happening. Article 12. Any dispute likely to lead to war will be settled by the Council. Article 14. The League will create a permanent court of international justice. Article 23. The members of the League will secure fair and humane conditions of labor for men, women, and children, both in their own countries and around the world. B. Will secure just treatment of the native inhabitants of territories under their control. D. Will entrust the League with the general supervision of the weapons trade. F. Will endeavor to take steps in matters of international concern for the prevention and control of disease. So in addition to trying to prevent war, they're trying to make sure workers are treated well, they protect the rights of native peoples, they're going to control the trade of weapons. Why is a group that's concerned about war going to supervise weapons? And then they're going to try and prevent the spread of disease. All of these seem like reasonable things. Tell me what the main goal is. All right, in our historic context, we need to figure out why the leaders of countries would get together and try and create an organization to prevent war. This should be pretty easy for you to know. Well, what happened just before then was World War I, and millions of people died. Soldiers died, citizens died. The war was pretty devastating. It's pretty easy to understand why a group of the leaders of those countries would try and form something to prevent another world war from happening. In January of 1919, leaders from countries involved in World War I met in Paris for the Paris Peace Conference to create a treaty to end World War I. By June of 1919, the Treaty of Versailles, including the League of Nations, is approved and signed by other countries at the Paris Peace Conference. It is then sent back to the United States to be signed. A treaty cannot just be signed by the President, it has to be approved by Congress. So what we're going to study is the debate that Congress had over it. If you remember from your world history class, some of the ideas of the League of Nations were created by the United States President Woodrow Wilson. So he had a role in creating this treaty and the League of Nations, and he came back to Congress to try and explain to them why we should join him. In 1919, he gave this speech. It's known as the Hand of God speech. Try and find out what in this speech shows why the United States should enter into international agreements. Woodrow Wilson said to Congress, "The United States entered both the war and the peace treaty negotiations as champions of right. At the peace table, it was America's duty to make sure all men might live without fear. The negotiations brought opportunities to do what statesmen had never been able to do, an opportunity to protect the rights of racial, national, and religious minorities by an international covenant an opportunity to stop militaries from being mischievous. Okay. A covenant is an agreement. The people of the world demanded the conference should create a concert of free nations to make war impossible. A cry went out from homes in every land from which sons and fathers had gone to battle that such a sacrifice should never happen again. The united power of free nations must put a stop to aggression, and the world must be given peace. Statesmen found the League of Nations as the main object of the peace. They saw it as the hope of the world. Shall we, or any other free people, hesitate to accept this great duty? Dare we reject it, and break the heart of the world? The stage is set. The future is clear. The hand of God has led us this way. We cannot turn back. America shall show the way. What main points is Woodrow Wilson focused on? He talks about what the purpose of the League of Nations is. That's to prevent war. So why is it the United States should join an organization to prevent war? Okay, let's talk about cartoon. This cartoon from Leonard Ravenhill called The Gap in the Bridge is from a British magazine. Is anyone familiar with what a keystone is? It's the stone that forms, it's the middle of an arch. Without that keystone, the whole arch will fall. So if this bridge, this arch, is spanning the gap and it's missing the keystone, will it work? It says the League of Nations Bridge was designed by the President of the USA. Uncle Sam doesn't seem to be interested in putting it in the bridge. So thinking about this, if an international organization or international agreement is created and the United States does not join, will it work? The United States is a pretty powerful country. So without our participation, does that mean it's doomed to failure? So without a Section 1, we get that some people think we should join these international agreements because they will keep the world safe and because they believe that those international agreements won't work without us, so we have a role to play in them. We need to find out why some people would be opposed to the United States joining international agreements. We're going to read a speech by a Republican senator from Massachusetts named Henry Cabot Lodge. He said, "Mr. President, I can never be anything else but an American, and I must think of the United States first. I have never had but one allegiance. I cannot divide it now. I have loved but one flag, and cannot share that devotion and give affection to the mongrel banner invented for a league. Internationalism is to me horrible. The United States is the world's best hope. But if you involve her in the fights of other nations, if you tangle her in the problems of Europe, you will destroy her power for good and endanger her very existence. Leave her to march freely through the centuries to come as in the years past." If we're looking at our first two paragraphs, what kinds of things is Mr. Lodge trying to say? What country does this United States senator want the United States spending its time trying to help? And go down to the third paragraph. No doubt many excellent and patriotic people see noble ideals in the words League for Peace. We all respect and share these hopes and desires, but some of us see no hope but rather defeat for them in this plan, for we too have our ideals, even if they are different from theirs. Our first ideal is our country. Our ideal is to make her ever stronger and better and finer, because in that way alone can she be of the greatest service to the world's peace and to the welfare of mankind. What are we seeing from Mr. Lodge? Who does he want us to spend our time worrying about? Does that sound at all like the debate that we're having today and Mr. President Trump's ideas for America First? Okay, let's look at the cartoon. What idea is presented in this cartoon that would give an argument for why we should not join this international agreement? The cartoon's title was "Your son will be fighting liquid fire and deadly gas on the battlefields of Europe someday." That's the League of Nations here, leaning behind this mother over her young child. You think the mom wants her baby to go fight in a war? Some people fear that if we join this organization, whose goal is to stop war, Our military might have to go and help stop a war. And what happens if we fight in a war? People could. All right. What happened? What was the result of the debate? Well, Henry Lodge won out. People thought that we should be focused more on helping our own country than worrying about international problems. So as a result, the United States did not join the League of Nations. And without the United States in the League of Nations, it was easy to see that the League of Nations was weaker. So in the 1930s, when Germany had a leader you may have heard of named Hitler, he came along, he started breaking the rules of the League of Nations. But because the League of Nations was weak and didn't want to stand up to him, he continued to break rules, he continued to grow in power, and eventually, what happened? World War II. So, could you argue that without the United States playing a role in the League of Nations, the League of Nations was a failure? And that failure resulted in World War II. So, a fairly significant consequence. I'm not trying to blame the United States for World War II or for Hitler, because that's a stretch. But if we had joined the League of Nations, would things have been different? It's possible. What is similar between the two policy debates? What is it that people are debating? Whether or not the United States should join international agreements. The past policy debate was about the League of Nations, and what are we debating today? Not just specifics, but generally. Alright, again, the rest of the assignment is extra credit, so you don't have to do it. So basically what you need to know about this debate is some people believe that the United States, as a world power, has some responsibility on the world stage to try and keep the peace, promote the welfare of other countries. But then you have other people who believe that while America is a powerful country, not everything here is perfect, so they think we should focus all of our efforts on helping ourselves. It's easy to see why both sides feel the way that they do. If you have questions, please email me or reach out via the numbers that I've given you on Classroom. Y'all stay healthy, stay safe.